Hey guys, so today we're going to learn one of the last rules of exponents, and it's how to work it if they are dividing bases that have exponents. Okay, so on this first one, we're going to break it down just so we can figure out what the rule is, and then once we figure out what that rule is, then we will use the shortcut. Okay, so I know 4 to the 5th means 4 times itself 5 times. And I know 4 squared on the bottom means 4 times 4. Okay, when we are dividing, if we have the same thing on top and bottom, it cancels. So I know one of these 4s on top will cancel a 4 on the bottom. Another 4 on top will cancel that second 4 on the bottom. Okay, there's nothing left that we can cancel, so I know my final answer will be 4 to the 1, 2, third power. Okay, very similar. I know x to the 5th means x times itself 5 times. X squared on the bottom means x times x. So I know these 2 x's from the bottom will cancel out 2 x's from the top. So my final answer is going to be x to the 1, 2, third power. So on top, x squared, x times x. On bottom, x to the 6, so x times itself 6 times. I know 2 x's from the top will cancel out 2 x's that are on the bottom. Okay, so be careful here. You got to notice where your x's are left at. My x's are on the bottom. So on the bottom, I'm going to have x to the 1, 2, 3, fourth power. Everything from the top canceled, so I can't leave it blank. I'm going to fill it in with the 1. Okay, on D, on top, I have 2. X to the 5th tells me I'm going to have x times itself 5 times. Y to the 3rd tells me I'm going to have y times itself 3 times. On the bottom, I have my 3. X to the 4th. And then times y. Okay, so I like to do my coefficients, my regular numbers first, and then I'll work through the alphabet. I have 2 divided by 3. Well, 2 divided by 3 is 2/3, which is a fraction that will not simplify any further. Next, I look at my x's. I see that 4 x's from the bottom will cancel out 4 x's from the top. So that leaves me with this single x that is on the top. And then I look at my y's. I see that one of the y's from the top will cancel that one y from the bottom. So my y's are left on the top. And it's going to be y to the 1st, 2nd power. Okay, so that's how you do it when you're going to break it down, but there is a faster way. So we're trying to figure out the rule that I do with my exponents to get here. What did I do with my exponents to get to this number? Well, notice 5 minus 2 is 3. 6 minus 2 is 4. So the rule is subtract when you're dividing your exponents, and that should make sense because things were canceling out. Well, if you're canceling it out, subtract. I know 2 of these guys canceled out these, 2 of these, so 6 minus 2 is 4. Okay, so the rule is subtract the exponents. All right, so now let's go ahead and try some using this subtraction rule. Okay, I have x to the 6th on top. I have x squared on the bottom. So I know that 2 of these guys would cancel out 2 of these, so that's subtraction. I do realize that I have the higher exponent on top, so after everything's canceled, x's will be left on top. 6 minus 2 is 4. Everything canceled from the bottom, so I can fill in a 1. Although that's unnecessary, so my final answer is x to the 4th. Okay, so I like to start with my constants first. So I have 18 divided by 9. 18 divided by 9 does simplify to a positive 2. Whole numbers go on top. Then I look at my x's. I see I have x to the third on top. I have x to the first on bottom. I see I have the greater exponent on top. So after things cancel, I'll have x's left on top. One of these x's will cancel one of these. So 3 minus 1 is 2. Y's are on top and bottom. I have the greater exponent on top, so I know my y's belong on top. 3 minus 2 is 1. So everything canceled from the bottom, so if you wanted to, you could fill in a 1. But that one on the bottom and that one exponent are unnecessary. So my final answer would be 2x squared y. Okay, so now we're going to be doing some rules from the past mixed in here as well. Okay, so we don't have any constants, so I'm going to go straight to my variables. I'm going to work through the alphabet. X is first. I see x to the fourth on top. I see x to the fourth on bottom. When you have the exact same thing on top and bottom, it cancels. So my x to the fourth on top cancels that x to the fourth on bottom. We don't have to worry about x's anymore. Okay, then when I look at my y's, I see y's on top and bottom, but I see that they have warning signs. So remember, whenever we see a negative exponent, it's telling me, hey, I might be up here on the top, but I don't belong here. So I know this y really needs to be moved to the bottom. When I move it to the bottom, its negative exponent drops off and becomes a positive. So this y right here is on the bottom with the warning, so it's telling me, hey, I don't belong down here. So this y really belongs at the top. When I move it, the negative drops off. All right, now I'm going to look at my z's. I see z's on top and bottom, but I see a warning. So this z is warning me that I'm on top, but I don't belong here, so I'm going to move this z to the bottom. When I move it, the negative drops off. I also have this z right here, this single z on the bottom. There is no warning, so I shouldn't move it. That single z should still belong down there. Okay, I do not want to leave my answer like this because it's not simplified. Notice I have y's here and here. I have z's here and here. So I don't want to leave my answer like that. Okay, so let's simplify. Y's, I see y's on top and bottom. I have the greater exponent on top, so y goes on top. Remember, one of these y's from the bottom will cancel one of the y's from the top, so 5 minus 1 is 4. Then I look at my z's. I see the only place my z's are on the bottom with no warning, so they belong at the bottom. But on the bottom I have z to the 8th and I have z to the 1st. So really at the bottom I have z to the, we add these together to get 9. Okay, so first, 5 divided by 10. 5 divided by 10 does simplify to 1/2. Then I look at my x's. I see I have x's on top and on bottom. The greater exponent is on bottom. And I subtract 3 minus 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. Then I look at my y's. I have a y on top and a y on bottom. Notice that it's exactly the same on top and bottom. So this single y on top will cancel that single y on bottom. Y's are gone. So that's my final answer. So first of all, I want to look at my 16 divided by 24. 16 divided by 24 is a fraction that will simplify. I know it's going to simplify into 2/3. Then we look at our x's. I have x's on top and bottom. The greater exponent is on the bottom, so I put x down there. And I do 2 minus 1, and that's going to give me 1. Then I look at my y's. I have y's on top and bottom. The greater exponent is on bottom, so y belongs on bottom. And I take 4 and I subtract 1 to get 3. Okay, this is all beautiful, but remember this one exponent is unnecessary, so my final answer will look like 2 on top. So 3x y to the 3rd. All right, so first, 18 divided by 8. 18 over 8 is a fraction that will simplify into 9 over 4. Then I look at my x's. I see x's on top and bottom, but wait, I see a warning right here, so let's take care of that warning first. This warning is telling me that, hey, I'm on top, but I don't belong up here. So I'm going to move this x to the bottom. When I move it, the negative becomes a positive. Then I look at this x and I realize that it has a 0 exponent. Well, I know a 0 exponent turns anything, whatever has the 0 exponent, into a 1. So this x becomes a 1. We're not really going to worry about that 1 since it's only a 1. So a times 1 wouldn't change anything, so I'm just going to mark it off. All right, next we have y's. I have y's on top and bottom. There are no warnings. There's nothing weird, right? So I have the bigger exponent on top, so y belongs on top. And I subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. So that 1 exponent is unnecessary, so your final answer is 9y over 4x squared. So first I have my fraction of 2 over 8. 2 divided by 8 is a fraction that will simplify into 1/4. Then I look at my x's. I see x's on top and bottom, but I realize that one of those x's has a warning, so I'm going to deal with that first. Okay, this specific x on top does not have a warning, so I shouldn't mess with it. I'm going to leave this x squared on top exactly where it was. But this x that's on bottom has a warning, so I'm going to move this x to the top. When I move it, that negative becomes a positive. Then I look at my y's. The only y I see is this guy, but it also has a warning, so the y on top is warning me I don't belong up here. So I'm going to move that y to the bottom. When I move it, the negative drops off. Okay, I don't want to leave my answer like this. First, this 1 on top is unnecessary. But on top I have x squared times another x squared. So since they're both on top, x squared times x squared, I add these together to really get x to the 4th. So first, 4 divided by 16. So will the fraction 4 over 16 simplify? It will, to 1/4. Then I look at my x's. I see x's on top and bottom. I see warning signs, but this time I really don't care about my warnings because if you notice, on top I have x to the negative 3rd. On bottom I have x to the negative 3rd. They are exactly the same on top and bottom, which means they will cancel. Same thing with my y's. On top I have y to the negative 2nd. On bottom I have the same exact thing, so my y's would also cancel. So I'm only left with 1/4. Right, bye guys.